The real-life location of t.hawk stage is in Guadalajara, Mexico. Specifically, the stage takes place in front of one of the city's most famous landmarks, the Hospicio Cabañas, which, when it was built, was once one of the largest hospitals and orphanages in the world, with the sole purpose of serving the city's most needy. A brief overview of its history is that in 1791, the Bishop of Guadalajara ordered the Hospicio Cabañas to be built. The structure was named after Juan Ruiz de Cabañas, the bishop's successor. In addition to its original purpose as a hospital and orphanage, however, throughout different points in time, the Hospicio was used as barracks and stables for different wartime groups. Currently, though, the structure is a museum and became a UNESCO World Heritage Site in 1997. Inside, you can view beautiful murals, works of fine art, or wander through one of its many courtyards. So the location of t.hawk stage is clearly in Mexico, but what about t.hawk himself? It seems like it would be really obvious that t.hawk is Mexican since the Mexican flag shows up when you select his character, but his appearance in-game seems to borrow heavily from the traditional outfits of Native American tribes based in the US, specifically those in the American South and Southwest like the Apache and Navajo tribes. My best guess is that t.hawk probably belongs to an indigenous tribe in Mexico, but specifically which tribe is a bit of a mystery. According to Street Fighter lore, t.hawk or Thunderhawk is part of the Thunderfoot tribe located in the Sonoran Desert of Mexico. When he was an infant, his ancestral lands were seized by Shadaloo and his father was killed by a young M. Bison, forcing him to flee to the Monte Alban Plains. Based on this information, I have seen some people claim that he's based on the Mexican Kickapoo tribe, who had a similar background to t.hawk in that some of the tribe settled in the Sonoran area of Mexico while struggling to reclaim their stolen land back from the Americans. But the Mexican Kickapoo tribe dresses nothing like t.hawk, where both the men and women often wore a type of cotton fabric called calico with almost a pioneer style of dress. My best guess as to t.hawk's inspiration, honestly, is that, like in many other aspects of the game, Capcom thought, oh, this clothing design looks cool, and decided to put it in. Even the Street Fighter wiki itself is confused because it says that t.hawk is Native American. So who knows definitively, but for the sake of my analysis, he is indigenous Mexican, but I could be totally off base here, and if I am, please let me know. In terms of the stage itself from the new challengers, again we're in front of the Hospicio Cabañas, and the stage is fairly one-to-one with real life. For one thing, you have the front of the structure here designed in the neoclassical style, with various buildings lining the left and right. Interestingly, the fountain seen in a lot of these pictures isn't present, but maybe the stage itself is located past the fountain and closer to the building. The floor has this stone tiling look to it in blue and white, which then fades into the more dirt-like flooring. In real life, the floor is completely paved with stone, and this pattern isn't present in front of the building itself. In some of the courtyards of the Hospicio Cabañas, though, we do see a kind of similar, though much larger sort of geometric design using white paint, but it's not really one-to-one. As for the people on the stage, first you have the most flashy and interesting-looking bunch in the middle, wearing what I believe to be Aztec-style ceremonial clothing with the feather headdress, the loincloths, and the robes. Behind the men, there is a fairly large crowd of onlookers dressed in more modern casual clothing. To the right, you see some other people hanging out with what are either mules or donkeys, presumably pulling this big cart of hay. And on the left, we see a small market set up with a tent overhead. I can't really tell what the item being sold inside the tent is, but it might be some sort of produce. Closer to the screen, there's a woman feeding some small birds, as well as a man and woman running a shop. They seem to be selling items like sombreros, ponchos, and woven baskets. Presumably the woman is weaving the items that are being sold, while the man holds a bolt of cloth or maybe a scarf in his hands. As for the music, t.hawk's theme is really underrated compared to the other songs in the Street Fighter II OST. Almost all the other themes have been remixed hundreds of times and more than gotten their due respect, but t.hawk's song just hasn't gotten that same recognition. In general, I think this song is tonally very different than a lot of the other songs. It almost has this hint of melancholy and adventure with the minor key, And when listening, I feel like I'm somewhere in the Wild West, traveling on horseback across the desert. The other appearance of t.hawk stage is in Super Street Fighter II Turbo HD Remix and Ultra Street Fighter II. And as I've mentioned before in some of the other videos in the series, the visuals of this game are more zoomed in, and subsequently some of the details are lost, and this stage is no exception to that rule. Some of these visual differences are the blue tiling on the floor, which to me seems clearer somehow and also newer looking. The mules or donkeys have also been replaced by horses, and they're actually being fed. You also have the people on the hay recording the fight, one of which who is holding a small video camera that I know that my dad and probably every dad had in the 2000s. And I think this just really goes to show how far technology has come since the new challengers came out, since nobody back then would be holding that in the first iteration of the stage. More likely it would be some sort of big camera that would sit over the shoulder. Other smaller changes include the crowd, which is a little bit bigger on the left now, maybe to make the stage seem more packed. There is also a kid on the left wearing a hat and acting the fight out while cheering it on. Music-wise, this song has the spirit of the original song from the new challengers, but has significantly added to the original. This is another fantastic tune from Overclock Remix with the arrangement called New Mexican Thunderbird done by Verez. First of all, there's a whole section added to the beginning of the song, with the melody carried by what I think is whistling and punctuated by clapping. Once the song hits the original starting point of the new challengers song, the melody is the same here, but there's some added percussion and bells that adds this layer of depth. After the melody from the original song plays through for the first time, there's this great trumpet, guitar, and violin section about halfway through the song that has been added. And after this bridge, the melody plays again, but this time carried by trumpets and brass, with the main theme emphasized with this powerful percussion and brass accompaniment. I honestly get chills when listening to this song. It's such a fantastic example of adding to, but not overwhelming or changing the original soundtrack. The spaghetti western theming is really highlighted and accentuated through the different instrumentation, and the use of added bridges between the repeated melody is mind-blowing. Highly recommend listening to the full song, and I can't say enough good things about it. With all that being said, I hope you enjoyed this quicker video. I do have some larger videos that are both stage and non-stage related coming up soon in the future, so hopefully this video will hold you over for a little bit until then. Subscribe for the next video in the series, and thanks again for watching.